All right, guys, happy Monday. I hope you guys had a great weekend. We're going to go ahead and go over the end of the module review. Today, we will go over this. Tomorrow, we will study. And then the Wednesday is when I will assign the end of the module assessment. Okay. So, number one says Miss Van invested some money by using the app eTrade. She tracks her gains and losses using the app on her phone. Miss Van receives a daily notification that updates her on all her transactions from the previous day. This morning, her notifications read as follows. Yesterday, investment activity included a loss of $500, a gain of $740, another gain of $120. Log in to see your current balance. Write an integer to represent each gain and loss. Well, a loss is always going to be negative, so this is negative 500. A gain is positive, so this is positive 740. Okay, and a gain of 120 is also positive, so this is where we end up. Miss Gay noticed that an error had been made on the map. The loss of $500 should have been a gain of $500. Locate and label both points that represent a loss of 500 and a gain of 500. Describe the relationship of these two when 0 represents no change. So each tick mark I'm going to represent 100. Okay, so this is 100, 200, 300, 400, and 500. This is going to be negative 100, negative 200, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. Okay. And now positive and negative. A loss of 500 is negative 500. A gain is positive 500. And the relationship between them is they are opposites. Okay. They are opposites. Let's go ahead and move on. Letter C says Miss Van wanted to correct the error. She entered double negative $500 into the app. She made a note that read the opposite of $500 is $500. Is her reasoning correct? Yes, she is correct. Okay, so the opposite of $500 is negative $500, and the opposite of that is $500. So the opposite of the opposite is $500. She is correct. Okay, number 2 says at 5 a.m. Chicago, Illinois had a temperature of 9 degrees Fahrenheit. At noon, the temperature was 5 degrees Fahrenheit, and at 10 p.m., it was negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Write a statement comparing negative 5 and negative 15 degrees. Okay, so letter A, we can just write negative 5 degrees is warmer than negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, it's closer to 0, so it's warmer. All right, now letter B says write an inequality statement that shows the relationship between the 3 recorded temperatures. Which temperature is the warmest? Okay, so we have 9 degrees. This is 9 degrees. This is negative 5 degrees. And this is negative 15. Oh, no, negative 5 degrees. And this is negative 10 degrees. Okay. So from least to greatest, I will have negative 10 degrees. Fahrenheit is less than negative 5 degrees Fahrenheit, which is less than 9. Okay. And C says explain how the absolute value to find the number of degrees below 0. The temperature below 0, the temperature was at noon. So the temperature at noon was -5 degrees, so the absolute value of -5 is 5. So the temperature was 5 below zero. Okay, let's keep on moving, guys. Letter D, in Green Bay, Wisconsin. The temperature at 5 a.m. was -10 degrees. We'll go ahead and highlight that. At noon, the temperature was the exact opposite of Chicago's temperature at 5 a.m. At 10 p.m., meteorologists recorded the temperature as -8 degrees in Green Bay. She concluded that for temperatures below zero, as the temperature increases, the absolute value of the temperature decreases. Is her conclusion valid? Explain, use a vertical number line to support your answer. Okay, so at noon in Chicago, it was 9 degrees, so the opposite is -9. So we have -10, -9, and -8. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and make a number line. Okay? And I have -8, -9, and -10. So her conclusion is correct because absolute values is a number's distance from zero. As the temperatures increase from -10 to -9 to -8, they get closer to zero. The distance from zero is decreasing. Okay, so she is correct. Okay, so when she says that as the temperature increases, the absolute value of the temperature decreases, yes, she is correct because we get closer to zero. Okay, awesome, guys. Let's keep on trucking. Number 3 says choose an integer between 0 and -8 on a number line and label the point x. Locate and label each of the following points and their values on on the number line. So 0 and -8. So I'm going to choose -2, and I'm going to label this x. Okay. Letter A. Says label point F, the opposite of point X. Okay, so that's going to be +2. Then it says label point G, a number less than point X. Okay, so a number less is going to be smaller, so this is going to be -3. That's G. Label point H, a number greater than point X. So a number greater would be -1. And this is H. Then it says label point J, a number halfway between X and the integer to the right of X. So that's going to be in the middle. And this is J. Okay? And that's all it wanted us to do for number 3. Now, number 4 says Mark is learning about elevation in math class. He decided to research some facts about California to better understand the concept. Here are some facts that he found. Mount Whitney is the highest point in California. It is 14,505 feet above sea level. The Salton Sea is 227 feet below sea level. The elevation of the Matterhorn ride at Disneyland is 279 feet above sea level. The Golden Gate Bridge is 220 feet above sea level. California borders the Pacific Coast, which is at sea level, and the lowest point of Death Valley is 282 feet below sea level. It says write an integer that represents each location in relationship to sea level. Mount Whitney is positive 14,505. Salton Sea is -227. Matterhorn ride is positive 279. Golden Gate is positive 220. Pacific Coast is 0. And Death Valley is negative 289. Now it says, explain what negative and positive numbers tell Mark about elevation. So a negative number, below sea level. And a positive number is going to be above sea level. That's all we need to talk about. That's all we need to say. Okay, what does it tell us about elevation? Well, a negative number is going to be below sea level. A positive number is going to be above sea level. Okay, now it says order the elevations from least to greatest and then state their absolute values. Use the chart from below to record your work. Okay, so from least to greatest, from top to bottom, we're going to start with the least. So it's negative 282. Okay, the absolute value is 282. Then we have negative 227. The absolute value is 227. Okay, then we have 0 and 0, 220 and 220, 279 and 279, and 14,505, 14,505. And it says circle the row that represents sea level. Okay, it's going to be 0. And it says describe how the order of the elevations below sea level compares to the order of their absolute value. Describe how the order of the elevations above sea level compares to the order of their absolute values. Okay. So let's do the elevations. Okay. So without sea level. So we have negative 282. Okay. Negative 227. 0, 220, 279. And then 14,505. Okay, and then now let's do absolute value. We have 0, 227, 227. Actually, we have 220 first, and then 227, then 279, then 282. And then finally, 14,505. Okay. So, order does change. Absolute value does make a big difference. Okay, now, number 5, guys, almost done. It says, Tim loves to frequent his favorite California amusement park. He loves to ride 6 rides each time that he goes. Letter A says locate and label the locations for the first rides he goes on. Letter A is at negative 8.5 and 2. Eight and a half and 2, and I'm going to label that A. Okay, and then B is negative 4 and negative 5. And that is B. Then C is 6 and 4. And D is 7 and negative 5.5. It's going to go right here, and that's going to be labeled D. Letter B says his favorite ride is in quadrant 3. Which coordinates of a point that lies in quadrant 3? that is going to be, oh, I'm sorry, letter B was supposed to be -4 and -5. So this is -4 down to 5. Right here. And that was B. Okay, so which coordinates of the point that lies in quadrant 3? This is quadrant 3. Okay, so it's going to be -4 and -5. Okay, and then what is the distance between the right point A and the point 8.5 and 2? Show your work to support your answer. So let's go ahead and so we need to find the absolute value of -8.5, which is 8.5, and the absolute value of 8.5 is 8.5. We're going to add these together. A half equals 1. 8 plus 8 is 16, so the distance is 17 units. Okay, 17 units. 8.5 plus 8.5 is 17 units. And letter D, what are the coordinates of point E on the coordinate plane? That is at -8 and 4. And letter E says point F is related to point B. Point F is related to point B. Its x-coordinate is the same as point B's, but its y-coordinate is the opposite of point B's. Okay, so it's going to be at -4 and 5. Okay, because it is -4 and +5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's F. Okay, what are the coordinates? The coordinates are -4 and 5. And then it wants us to count the distance apart. Okay, well, 1 is 5, -5, so the absolute value of -5 is 5. The absolute value of 5 is 5. We add those up, and they are 10 units apart. Okay? And how do we find that? Well, we used absolute value. Okay? So, guys, go ahead and make sure that you have the same answers and study this. Okay? Remember, we're going to study more tomorrow, and we will take the test on Wednesday.